in all, it is 36 degrees and we are definitely in late fall. Jeff and I, well, we're up on the river today, and I left Jeff downstream. He's doing a little metal detecting, and we are on a huge gravel bar today. And I thought before we actually started looking for gold, let's talk a little bit about the gravel bar and how I decide where to look for gold on a gravel bar. Now we're at the upper end of the gravel bar, and you can tell by looking at the brush, it's been quite a few years since we've had a flood. So we got to keep that in the back of our mind, knowing that this gravel hasn't been turned over in probably, looking at the brush, I would guess 15 years, maybe longer. So anything that looks obvious, probably already been worked, and we don't want to waste our time digging in areas where somebody's already looked. Now, gravel bars. The thing about a gravel bar is you can pretty much find gold anywhere on a gravel bar. But we're only here for a day, so we want to optimize our possibilities of the most gold. So you want to get an area where you know gold is collecting in the pay streak. Now, let's look at this gravel bar. Now it's hard to tell, but all the gravel in this area is pretty small. The reason for that is the main flow is out there in the center of the river. And the reason we know this is we're at the very beginning of the gravel bar on this side, and we're at the tail end of the gravel bar on the other side. Now what we're looking for is where the flow hits this corner, because the river's making a turn, and this is now the inside. That's inside upstream. Now where this makes the turn, we want to find where the big boulders are hitting, so we know that's the edge of the flow as it's making the corner. Because as it makes the corner, the flow on the inside of that turn is going to diminish. And as it diminishes, it's going to start dropping the big boulders first, then the lighter boulders after that. Now, we know we have no flow where we're at now because of all the small boulders. So what we're looking for now is where the pay streak leaves that gravel bar and it hits this gravel bar. Right now, the pay streak's out in the middle of the river where the flow is. So we need to head downstream, and as we go downstream, we keep an eye on the gravel on this bar, and we have to find where the boulders start to increase in size. Okay, now we've gone downstream, I don't know, a couple hundred feet. And I don't know if you can see it, but basically right behind me is the end of the gravel bar on the other side. And you can see how the boulders are showing up on this side of the river. We've got a big one out here in the middle. So our flow is transferred over to here. Now we have some big boulders showing up on this gravel bar. Now right in here you can see there's a big boulder here, there's a couple more in here, there's kind of a line of them along here. And back in the brush you can't see it, but there's quite a few big boulders. Now if it wasn't so cold, I would seriously think about setting a sluice box up right here, and then in amongst these big boulders I would do some sampling of the gravel. Now you got to use the boulders as riffles to catch your fine gold, because there's no bedrock in the gravel bar. So you got to use the boulders to diminish the flow. And your gold's going to build up behind the boulder and in front of the boulder. Now today, we're going to do some panning. And when you're panning, now if we had bedrock available here, this is where we'd work, because this is where your largest pieces are going to be. But since we don't have bedrock, we're going to go to the tail end of the gravel bar, because that's where your finer gold's going to circle in at the tail end of the gravel bar and build up concentration. Plus, a lot of times you can find bedrock at the tail end of a gravel bar. So what do you say we head down there, see what it looks like down there? Well, I thought since we were going by, we'd stop and see if Jeff found any gold yet.
If you're moving, that means you must have got it all down that way.
Haven't looked yet. Anything?
I haven't even panned anything out. I've just been creviceing.
Ah. Okay, we've made it to the very end of the gravel bar, and you can tell we've gone too far by the fact that there's more dirt and sand than there is rocks here. The river has widened out, and right here we got a really big tree that's been hit a couple of times, but basically that tree's been there for a long time, which means this gravel bar gets little to no flow. So we know we're in dead water here, so we've gone too far. Okay, now I've gone back upstream. You can see we now have gravel. We've got an old tree here that's just beat to death, so we know it gets a flow. We have some nice big rocks sitting here, but this is basically the end of the flow on the gravel bar. So this tells me this is where the fine gold's gonna come in here and accumulate in this area right where I'm standing. Or at least that's my theory. Now that area we were in had too much sand, just nothing but sand. What you're after is you want a mixture of sand and small gravel and, you know, softball sized rocks. That way you know you got a little bit of flow in there that's going to bring in some gold. If you have just nothing but sand, then your flow's too light to bring in, you know, it'll bring in 100 mesh gold, but you know, you're not going to get that panning. So this area, we've moved upstream another 30, 40 feet, and this area's got sand and gravel. Now right below me, we have bedrock out in the river. Now right here, you can see we got bedrock, and that's coming up right in here where we have some nice sized boulders. We got sand, we got gravel. I'm thinking right in this area would be a good spot to dig down a little bit, see if we can find some bedrock. Now if we can find some bedrock, we're going to find gold on the bedrock, but ideally we want to find some catches in the bedrock. So what do you say we take a quick look? Now when you're pulling the gravel back, you don't have to worry about the surface, because you know the gold's not going to be on the surface. But if you look at the gravel we got a nice mixture of sand and gravel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dig down here a little bit until we get into a little bit past that surface layer, like right in here, and we'll take a small sample of this gravel and just see what it looks like. The reason you take a sample before you get too silly on your digging is you want to get an idea of what the flow's like. And to do that, the gravel tells you one story. Well, the black sand will tell you the rest of the story. So we'll see if there's any black sand, and if there is, the coarseness of it. And then if we have any gold, the fineness of the gold will tell us the rest of the story on whether or not this is the area we're looking for. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, well, I got that panned out, and we've got quite a bit of black sand. The coarseness of the black sand looks good. It's not super coarse, but then we're not gonna get real coarse black sand here because we're in a reduced flow area. We do have gold. Well, let me show you this. Now I switched over to the green pan so you can actually see, but for the little bit of material we had in that small pan, that's a lot of black sand. Now if you look at the coarseness, it's, you know, it's not real coarse, but it's not super fine either. It looks pretty good to me. I'm going to put this in a little pan, then pan it down more so I can show you the gold. Now you can see right here we got several pieces of gold. Grant you they're not very big, but the fact that it was half of a small pan right off the very top, I'm saying that's not bad at all. So I'm thinking we need to go a little deeper here. And yes, I'm going to snuff this up because that makes it a no skunk day, and as far as I know, I'm ahead of Jeff. And now we know we're in a good spot as far as our flow goes. We got the large quantity of black sand, we got a nice sized black sand, and we do have gold. Now that was just in this top layer. So what we need to do now is dig down till we hit the hard pack. Now the hard pack, every time you have a flood, the gravel moves and it eats away down to a certain point, and then if it's not a huge flood, that will actually get packed by the smaller gravels going over it and create a hard layer that will act like a false bedrock. It will build up gold on that. And then when you get your 1,000-year flood or whatever, it will take everything down to bedrock because there's so much flow, it just tears the whole river up. And it puts all the gold back on the bedrock. Well then, as the years go by, you get the normal, real wet winters, and they will create hard pack layers. And so what we're going to look for, we know there's been no flood for, looking at the brush, I'm guessing 20 years. So there will be a layer where on the winter, on a normal winter where you got a decent flow, it's going to move some of this gravel and it's going to move the gold down. And that's what we want to get to, is that layer that is a false bedrock. That's where our biggest gold is going to be and our best concentration. So do some digging, let's see if we can find it. Now we've dug down about a foot here, and we've hit a layer, and a good indication is it's fairly flat, but mainly the gravel will change color. And I've noticed there's a few rusty spots in here too. And the hard pack will accumulate iron also. And so if you start finding nails and stuff like that, you know you're in a good spot. So we do have some rust. I haven't seen any nails. We do have some rust, but I got a test pan here full, so we'll take that down. See, theoretically, we should be getting a little larger flakes. Let's find out. We got that panned out. We got gold. And I think Jeff must have smelt it because he just showed up. We got a lot of black sand and some nice sized flakes. Well, we're doing a little test here because Jeff broke through the hard pack and the gravel really changed, and he's doing a pan right now. And then I dug on down and I've hit bedrock. But to be honest with you, the bedrock doesn't look as good as the hard pack does. But we'll find out in a minute. Well, that pan that Jeff did out of the gravel below the hard pack, virtually no black sand and no gold. And now I'm down scraping on the bedrock, and it doesn't look good at all. I mean, it's just, it's too washed, and there's no pack at all. So unless we can find a crevice, we're not going to find much down there. Now Jeff is doing another pan right now out of the gravel from the hard pack. So let's see if there's any gold in this one. Well, I was cleaning up the last of this for Jeff, and I went to move the gold around, and I forgot I had smoked tuna for lunch, and my hands are oily, and I stuck my hands in his pan. It's gold floating now. But let me show you what he got out of that pan. Okay, here you can see a little bit of gold here, and the rest of it's just kind of floating around.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Okay, well, I just dug off the last of the hard pack we got uncovered. I'll pan that out, and then I'm gonna try to open this up, see if we can see a little more of that bedrock, and see if we can find some kind of crack or crevice in that bedrock to sample it. Be right back. Okay, here's that pan. You can see we got gold all through here. And right here, we're calling that one a nugget. Well, we're not sure what's going on here because we have lost the hard pack. We went downstream and it disappeared. The gravel it turned horrible looking. I think it's actually somebody's tailings because it was bad. And now we just went upstream a little bit, and the hard pack is super thin, and we've lost our black sand, and the last pan I did had like 3 little tiny specks in it, and that was it. So I'm gonna try to move a big boulder here, get another look at the bedrock. If it doesn't look good, we may have to find another spot. Okay, what I've done is I went downstream a little bit, took a couple of test pans, and the black sand just gets too fine. There's not enough flow to really bring any gold in. Now I've gone upstream a little bit, and the problem is we get these brush line right along the edge that makes it really hard to get into any spot. But I did find a spot up there that's got bedrock coming up out of the water. It's got gravel on it, and it seems to be packed pretty good. Did a test pan up there and found a little bit of gold. Let me show you. You can see right through here we got quite a few little pieces of gold. Well, I'm going to grab a couple tools, run up there, and do another test pan. And if it looks like we're going to work there, I'll come back and grab the camera. Well, I dug down on bedrock in that spot up there, and I got gold, but I'm not sure if I got it off the bedrock or if I got it out of the material on top. The stuff on the bedrock, to be honest with you, the gravel just does not look good to me. The pack stuff on top looks good to me. And so I got a sneaky hunch that's where it's coming out of. I'm gonna have to do a test where I do just the top, just the bottom. Problem is, I can't set the camera up there. There's not enough room. So let me show you the gold I found, then we'll go up, make another test, and try to figure out what we're gonna do. Okay, you can see we got a pretty good little string of gold right there. And there's more finer pieces underneath the black sand. Okay, well, we've done a couple of tests, and I did a pan up high. That one's got gold in it. I'll show you that in a second. Then I went down, took my Huntley spoon, and I dug everything I could off of the bedrock and cleaned the bedrock about the bottom inch. Pan that out, hardly any black sand and no gold. So the theory I got right now is the bedrock, I think the last flood we had, the flood of 97, I think blew that bedrock clean, and the gravel that we're digging up is really washed. So I think that gravel was really washed, really clean when the river finally stopped and it dropped all that gravel. And then since then, in the last 20 years from then, we've had several little storms, but no big floods. And I think that top 6 to 8 inches has been working and depositing the fine gold we're finding, because that seems to be the spot where the gold's hiding. All right, let me show you this gold. Okay, you can see right through here, we got a pretty good line of gold, or at least for today it's a good line of gold. Nothing big, but a fair amount of pieces. Now, if we could find a crevice on that bedrock, then I think we'd do pretty good. But the bedrock is pretty much smooth, so what gold was being moved around, I think just kept going. And so the bottom's pretty barren. So we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I think Jeff and I are just gonna work the top gravel, see what we can come up with, and we only got maybe another hour at the most, then we gotta call it a day. Okay, well, if we come across anything great, I'll turn the camera back on. If not, I'll see you back at the house. Back at the house, and normally I'd say it's the next day, but it's like 2 days later. It took me a while to clean that gold up. Now, as usual, we had so much black sand and so much fine gold, everything that went through the 50 mesh, we didn't mess with. That goes into the end of the year stuff, which is getting close. And we'll clean that up later. All right, well, let's jump over to the scale, see how we did. Okay. We end up with 1.22 grams or 0.87 pennyweights. Well, a little over a gram. Fell short of our 2-gram rut, but where we were, I'm calling it a pretty good day. Now, when I was talking in the video about the flow, I forgot to mention, when I'm talking flow when the gold, like what we found, and the gravel is moving. You want to look at the river in a flood stage, not what it's doing while you're down there. And by flood stage, I don't mean just, massive, but when the gravel's moving, when the river's muddy, you can tell things are moving. That's the flow that establishes the area where we want to look. Now, another thing I wanted to cover was that chunk of river where we were gets hit really hard. I mean, it's just off the road, and a lot of people go there. So the fact that we found a gram of gold, I think is pretty good. And it got me to thinking, why not go back there and attack that gravel bar from the angle that it is worked to death? So I think we're going to head back up there, or a similar gravel bar. One that I know gets hit a lot. And we're going to see if we can beat our gram day with the purpose of hunting a gravel bar that we know is worked to death. What to look for, what to stay away from. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I got on this one. So I'm out of here. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video.